Today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode number 17, and hello to everyone in the premiere chat as I'm premiering this. And I have done around 4 streams since I recorded the last episode, and the main reason I've done these is because I have updated basically all the layers. We have provinces. This took the most time, even though it's not really going to impact the series, but I have drawn provinces for every area. I also went ahead and updated the city layer. So there may be, there's just cities like everywhere now, like in Morocco, over here in Poland, over here in Persia and stuff. Everyone has a capital city now, apart from this one country over here, which doesn't have a capital for some reason, but that is now fixed. Well, we also see that there are some more like big cities, like I've upgraded some cities to be bigger. Ones I noticed off the top of my head are like right here. And then like the Swiss have upgraded to a newer size, so like the capital, which is technically Bern, is the biggest city in the world. Bigger than the Kurdish city. And I guess the last layer that I fully completed was the ideology layer, if you want to take a pause at this. I guess you can quickly go through them all. We have this magenta-ish, dark magenta, which is Grand Duchy. Purple, Kingdom. Dark purple, Empire. This thing over here is Tsardom. I don't really know what colour that is. This is the Hungarian monarchism or whatever. You have to go back a few episodes to figure out what that does, because I honestly forgot what that means. And then I guess the last, there's 2 more. We see over here that Anatolia is a Swiss republic, and basically a Swiss republic is just a republic where they elect a consul / 2 consuls, like the Swiss used to do. I think it's actually 1. The Swiss only have had 1 consul, and that's kind of how it works. So it kind of is a republic, but like it's a bit iffy. Whereas down here, Carthage is like not really a proper republic, but like the people definitely have more say in what goes on in Carthage. And the people in charge are in charge for much longer. No, the opposite. They aren't in charge for long. They're in charge for less time than, say, someone in Anatolia would be. And I don't know if you guys saw my teasers for this, but like the war is hella long, so I don't know if we're just going to get straight into it, or there's something else I want to do. You know what, I guess we can do some of these minor changes. I'm actually going over to the Netherlands ethnicity first, as saying that this is all one united ethnicity is kind of wrong, and things have chosen, all the civil wars and stuff, have modified this ethnicity. And there we go, looking at the ethnicity layer, this is kind of what it looks like. We see this main Netherlands ethnicity, which is obviously the main one. And then we have down here this kind of Belgian ethnicity, sorry Dutch people. And then over here we have this kind of like Saxon ethnicity. That's really the only word I could use to describe this. It's not German, it's still Dutch, but like the people over here are, it's kind of like a mix to some extent, but obviously it's not its whole own ethnicity. It's just kind of its own little thing. Now, are there any other ethnicities that are going to get some sub-ethnicities? Probably not. I think everything's good enough for now. And you know what? We'll get into this war super quick, but the last thing is looking at the religion layer, as it is going to go ahead and expand even more. We see by this point that most Turks are now adopting the green religion, which has allowed it to spread down into this region, while we actually see that the green religion has spread all the way over to Armenia, where it has gone ahead and found itself a pretty nice base of support up over here. And is also spread over into the Caucasus region, as the green religion is now spreading quite far. However, all of Armenia is yet to like kind of convert, or I guess be like aware of this green religion. But what region is made aware is Crimea over here. Well, we actually see this yellow religion will be getting a huge expansion, as they have gone ahead and like spread it quite a lot. The yellow religion has spread to all these regions, with some of these borders being toned down a little bit. And this is a pretty interesting thing to see over here. Hold on. Some of these things are kind of annoying me. I know it's like a religion border, so it's like whatever. But if we look at ethnicity, we can kind of see that most of the yellow religion people are obviously of this Central European ethnicity. But we actually see that the Romanians are under the yellow religion, despite being a Balkan ethnicity, which is something that I think is quite interesting to look at. Also, up in the north of Serbia, there are some Serbians that follow the yellow religion rather than whatever the other religion was, I forgot. But anyway, let's go ahead and get on to the main events. And for that, we obviously have to start with the alliance layer. And now, this is something I haven't addressed, but yeah, this alliance is gone. It's been gone for like years now. Ever since Catherine died and the new Swiss Empress took over, they just kind of got rid of the alliance because it's like, what's the point? But it's been a while, and Florence is going to go ahead and sign the creation of a brand new alliance, which will be shown by this 3-point star, and it will go ahead and contain, firstly, Sicily, and secondly, and maybe surprisingly, maybe not, it will actually go ahead and contain Genoa. Now, this could come to a shock to some people, because this alliance is obviously anti-Venetian, like Florence is Venice's biggest enemy, and, you know, I mean, biggest enemy is Florence, second biggest enemy is Sicily, so, you know. Actually, maybe the second biggest enemy is Albania, but, like, in terms of the Italian region, that's what. But, yeah, the main reason is that, honestly, it's been, like, years and years and years since... I mean, obviously, it's been centuries since these two were on the same side, like, fighting a war together. And, like, tensions have just fallen out, essentially. And now Genoa is more closely tied to Florence, which has allowed them naval access through this tiny strait here, which has bolstered their trade. Originally, they were cut off, but then they sorted some things out, and eventually they've become good buddies to go ahead and sign this alliance. And we actually see that the Italian League is going to go ahead and come up with a plan, as they basically plan to launch a full-scale invasion into Venice and their allies, who, by the way, let me go ahead and place Venice's allies on here. Signalled by the Triangle Alliance, their, well, unfortunately, one and only ally will go ahead and be Turin, who will go ahead and join their side. As we kind of see, these alliances will get colours to make it seem easier. I guess like the blue 3-point star and the yellow triangles. Although they both do have names. What did I actually call it? Let me check. I don't think I gave these guys an alliance of triangles, but this is the Italian League down here, led by Florence. But yeah, the Italian League is gearing up, and they have drawn up a plan for an invasion of Venice. To actually take a look at this plan, we're actually going to be seeing the implementation of a brand new layer, which I'm pretty happy about. And there's actually an armies layer. Now, currently, you might be like, what the hell is going on? But let me break it down for you. These squares are armies. Now, there are tiny little dots here on the major cities. These represent the defenders, while over here, Venice obviously is a bigger one because they have a lot of defenders, because obviously it's a very big city. So that's what these ones mean. But what does everything else mean? Well, firstly, obviously the colour represents the colour of the country. So this orange is Venice, this green is Genoa, this blue is Florence. But then the outline colour actually represents something else. That is mainly for naming. So if it's gold, it's the first army, so the Venetian first army, the Florentine first army, etc. While like down here we have the Venetian second army, and we even have the Venetian third army up here. And I guess the final thing is obviously the bigger the like pixel thingamajig is, the bigger the army. So if we go ahead and compare the third Venetian army to the Genoan one, we can see that obviously they are smaller. And if, say, these two forces join together, which they won't, because they're enemies, it would be coloured like that. Or maybe it would even be coloured like this to represent that Genoa makes up the most of the army, etc. So yeah, three main things. The main colour is who country it owned. The size is how big the army is, roughly-ish. And then the outline colour is like the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. Basically, that's just... The outline colour is basically so I can talk about armies easier. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this plan. We see up over here that both Genoa and Florence both have their first armies ready to launch dual attacks into Venice, with Genoa targeting Milan. Meanwhile, Florence over here will target these two cities. While down here, we actually see that the Florentine Second Army is currently stationed here. And if they need help, they will go ahead and go down into the south to crush Venice. But if Sicily, who will go into a minute, can do this by themselves, the Florentine Second Army will come up here to help with a northern offensive to try and wipe out Venice. Meanwhile, we actually see that the Roman army is kind of just here. Like, this is the Genoan Second Army / the Roman army. They are stationed here mainly to stop anyone from passing through here if anything were to happen. And also potentially as reinforcements for Genoa if they ever need them, so they're staying there. Meanwhile, the Neapolitan First Army has plans to head down south, while over here the Sicilian First Army will also head south. As you can kind of see that these are the three main ways that armies will be going, with 2.5 in the south and 2.5 in the north, which is basically what you would expect. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this invasion. We see the first country to go ahead and make the move is Genoa, who they will send their forces in, and they will go ahead and end up meeting with the Milan army, in which they will decisively crush Milan. As we see, they will go ahead and begin a siege of the city. Now, let me know if you guys like this army stuff after this episode is done, because obviously it is a bit janky when the army might be in the wrong spot and the invasion color isn't there. Obviously, I'll still do the army warfare, but whether you like this, I guess, kind of flag/unit or whatever being over here. We actually see that the Florentine Second Army was actually moved back up here as they has launched an invasion and, to some extent, I guess, kind of a siege of this city here. Now, I have noted down that both cities of around about Parma and Mantua are under siege. Now, I have no idea which one's which, but we see that the first army up over here will also begin sieging this land. Like so, they will also go ahead and take this city, as we can kind of see that both of these cities are being sieged. Now, I did just make the mistake of colouring this in like it's not being sieged. It is. So we see that both of these cities are sieged by the main, I guess, kind of armies. While the Venetian main army up over here is a bit stuck on what to do. Like, what's their plan of action? They could risk a fight with Florence, but like Florence is like prepared for this. They're not, and they might lose that, which would be a devastating blow. We see down here that the Sicilian First Army has gone ahead and basically just planned to siege this city. They think that if they can go ahead and take this city from Venice, they will cut their supply line through the land down here. So they will go ahead and first surround the villages before beginning a siege of this city over here, which will go ahead and work. I mean, they haven't obviously taken the city, but, you know, done something. Meanwhile, Naples over here will go ahead and be admitted in it to the Three-Point Star Alliance. Now, the main reason they are doing this is because they were promised a bunch of land. And when you're promised a bunch of land, why wouldn't you join? So they will go ahead and march the Neapolitan army straight... Oh my god, what the hell? Straight through here. And they will go ahead and actually do pretty well subduing a lot of this region. As we see that they will go ahead and begin sieging this little city over here. I say little city, it's not little. Well, down here, we see that this region will eventually go ahead and submit over as the local villages / I don't really know, settlements, I guess. Go ahead and surrender. We see over here that Turin has gone ahead and decided to merge its two armies, forming this pretty big, I guess, kind of like joint Turin army, in which they will go ahead and strive straight through here, and they will go ahead and fight Genoa at the Battle of Milan. In this battle, we see that Turin will go ahead and be the one leading the assault. And in this battle, we see that they will come out on top as the Genoan army is heavily weakened. So I'm going to have to go ahead and downgrade their army size to look something a bit like this. As we see that Genoa will have no choice but to flee the battlefield as they return home. While with minimal losses, Turin will go ahead and manage to relieve the city of Milan, reclaiming all their land. However, bad news, because we see over here that Parma has gone ahead and fallen to the Florentine Second Army, as the Florentine Second Army continues its invasion up here, now essentially splitting Venice into two, as it's kind of hard to go through these mountains. Right on here, we see that the city will go ahead and fall over to Sicily as their forces continue. And Venetian southern Italy is definitely split into two by now, and we continue to see the Sicilian troops make an advance, as they basically just kind of stare at each other, these two armies. And it's basically just kind of either side is waiting for, you know, the sign to go ahead and basically attack the other. But both Sicily and Venice don't really want a fight, but they kind of do at the same time. It's a bit interesting. Well, actually over here, we see that the siege will fail, as we actually see that Naples is forced to retreat for extra supplies, which is a pretty embarrassing loss for them. Like, they couldn't even take this random city. So we see that Venice will be given a bit of breathing room, as a few cities will go ahead and re-swear allegiance over to Venice, but it's really not that much. Well, up over here, we see that Venice's army has gone ahead and been formed, as they have merged all of their small armies into forming one big army, which is probably slightly bigger than the Florentine army here. Florence just has a lot more manpower than Venice at the moment, which is why they can have an army around similar size of Venice and a whole other army. Obviously, Venice kind of does have the same thing, but like it's all the way down there. So in terms of total troops, these guys are kind of similar, but obviously Venice has a pretty big portion of troops down in the south. So up here, they're all alone. However, news has just reached Venice that the second Florentine army is planning to go ahead and merge to take down Mantua up over here. And they will go ahead and receive this news by the time that the city has gone ahead and taken this village. And I just said city. This army has taken the village. And these guys are close. So Venice knows that this is the time to act, as the Venetian First Army will launch a decisive attack on the army of Florence, in which Florence took enough losses to go ahead and downgrade them, and they are forced to flee. As you see, that both of these armies will actually flee, which is a pretty decisive win for Venice, as they have just defeated the largest force. And we quickly see that a lot of regions will go ahead and be re-liberated by Venice. Similarly, up over here, the dual Turin army will go ahead and take this city back. Now reconnecting Venice, as it looks like Venice is making a comeback. However, Florence has another trick up its sleeve, as we go ahead and see that both the Florentine First and Second armies will go ahead and meet up with the Genoan First Army, in which all of these armies will go ahead and merge to go ahead and form the League Army, a very powerful force, much bigger than Venice's army, amounting around 50,000 men, a very terrifying threat and news to basically all of Venice's allies that this huge new force has appeared up here. Venice will go ahead and try and replicate this by uniting with Turin, in which we see that Venice and Turin will go ahead and create the Northern Army. Now, if we compare these army sizes, we can clearly see that the Florentine army is bigger, as both the League and Northern armies prepare for a huge battle. But this battle isn't happening here, as we actually see that the League army has gone ahead and basically marched towards Milan, and they have actually managed to take the city for themselves. And they basically set up camp right outside the city. Well, I mean, they're in the city, but also right outside. While over here, we see that the Venetians will go ahead and settle camp around here, as these two camps are probably like an hour away from each other. I don't actually know the distances. Actually, it's probably more than that. I don't know. But anyway, they will set up camps. And we see that morale in the Venetian army is at an all-time low. And Venice's army amounts around 35,000 men, while Florence's is around 50,000, almost 60,000. So they're almost outnumbered 2-1. And it looks like the fate of Venice is sealed. But then from the fog of the Venetian camp, we see reinforcements emerge. But these reinforcements aren't from any Italian nation on the map. They are from all over the world, led by a man named Theodore Johanna. Theodore Johanna speaks to the soldiers of the Northern Army, announcing, "I am Theodore Johanna, great-grandson of Johann the Immortal, and I have travelled across the world to bring glory to Venice and protect our sacred religion from the heretics that plague it. Stand with me, and Venice and the Venetian religion shall return to glory." We see that everyone will go ahead and unite under the leadership of Theodore, being fully, I guess, kind of like not moraled, I don't even know what the word is, like, moralized. I mean, you're demoralized, but like remoralized, I don't know, by Theodore, as they have been given hope again. And we actually see that Theodore has 2,000 elite Berber cavalry and 3,000 experienced Iberian, English, and North African soldiers with him. But hold on, you might be like, Sword, well, backtrack a second. Who is Theodore Johanna? Where's this like reinforcements come from? What the hell has this guy been doing this whole time? And to answer that, let's go ahead and backtrack and take a look at a little story. Theodore Johanna is actually from Dover, as his and his family are actually Count of Norwich. And as soon as the Third Italian War broke out in the year 306, he raised a small army of around 500 men, and he went and set off. Now, I don't know where he set off from, maybe this major city, maybe from Dover. But anyway, he went and set off, and actually brought with him his two brothers, which if we look at the family tree, this has been updated a lot. We have the Johanna dynasty and the Maria dynasty, split at Marie and Johann. And you can look at this, but I'll go over the main things. These guys that are dead don't really matter. We see that Johann's direct descendants are the Count of Norwich, Theodore Johanna, Gerard Johanna, Rudolf Johanna, and Catherine Johanna. While over here, the current Swiss Empress is Madeline I Maria the Bold. Now, that's a pretty long name. And then a quick note on this, actually. You might notice that, first of all, everyone born is a woman. And second of all, they don't really have many children over here. And that is because, one, they actually just kill the men or, like, get rid of them. Basically. They think that having a man in power is, like, the worst thing ever. So, yeah, they just get rid of the male child before they're born. And it's normally convention that the Swiss Empress only really have one children, maybe two. So 2 over here was actually a bit of a shock. And this is basically to secure the succession line. Because they're like, in other kingdoms, there's just constant civil war and I guess kind of an argument who the rightful ruler is. But if I only have one rightful ruler, then, you know, how can I have an argument, essentially? But yeah, the main thing over here is that Theodore has gone ahead and went on a journey with Gerard and Rudolph. As we see, they went ahead and settled off from Dover, and they went down here into Asturias, where he got around 1,000 Iberian men and some ships, before eventually he went all the way down here to the Tlemcen Empire, going throughout it, where he went ahead and purchased 2,000 Berber cavalry and around 1,000 more infantry, and finally he went over to Carthage, where he gained 500 more elite infantry, more ships, and from here he finally went ahead and set sailed to Venice, arriving in Venice around a month prior to this whole interaction, and then he went over here and he did the thing. So now Venice's forces amount around 40,000 with around 3,000 elite infantry and 2,000 elite Berber cavalry, as probably the two biggest Italian armies ever are about to come face to face. And actually, funny enough, they're not meant to even clash here. Originally, they were going to clash down here, so we're kind of off topic, guys, but I guess they can clash up here for Milan. We see that at the Battle of, I guess, Milan v2, that Theodore and his men will come out on top, decisively crushing the combined League army, taking back Milan. However, this has come at a grave cost. League army losses are around 90%. It's insane. It's like 40,000 men dead, captured, or I don't know what else. However, we actually see up here that the Northern army faced around 30,000 men lost. So the actual size of this new army is around here. Well, we see that the remaining forces will flee into Genoa before fleeing over here to Bologna or Bologna. Why did I say Bologna? Whatever. And we see that Theodore has no choice but to go ahead and continue chasing this army, as they will go ahead and free Mantua before fighting this army yet again, where we see that the rest of them will be obliterated. And after around a month-long siege, Bologna will go ahead and surrender, as Florence has been completely kicked out of Venice, and they have now lost all of this northern territory to the advancing Venetian army, which is great. However, there are some more events that have basically happened due to this battle. And one of those events is that both the King of Turin and Venice have died. We see that Gerard, who is Theodore's brother, is sent to claim the throne of Turin, in which he will be successful after he gets the support of the nobles and maybe, I don't know, threatens them or something. Well, with the loss of the Venetian king, we actually see that Venice will kind of transition to a brand new ideology known as a diarchy, where both Theodore and the Venetian Pope will rule as co-leaders, essentially. Meanwhile, we see that Rudolph, the third brother, is sent all the way to Rome to ignite a revolution. However, bad news down here, because the Neapolitan and Sicilian army have launched a dual siege and invasion of this kind of foggier region and have taken it. And with that, we see that both Sicily and, I guess, kind of the Neapolitan army over here, they're basically not really united, but they are both preparing to launch an invasion into the rest of Venetian Italy, or Venetian southern Italy, should I say. And both of their armies prepared on the border. Gerard, now having basically complete control of Turin, is going to go ahead and raise himself a brand new army, which will be decently small. However, when they're facing Genoa, who basically has no army left, they will basically just walk right into the Genoa. And they will basically just begin a siege of Genoa, as the rest of Genoa basically just surrenders over to Gerard. They're like, well, we don't really have any troops to fight back, so we're not going to. As this war has basically completely ravaged northern Italy. Not too much central and southern Italy, at least not yet. However, a brand new power is about to get entered into the war. And that power is going to be none other than the Swiss. We see that the current Swiss empress over here, which is Madeline, I'm going to say Madeline, or I'm going to say Madeline. Basically, Madeline is like, hold on a minute, you're telling me that Johann, first of all, Johann had surviving, like, I guess, kind of people. After Louis died and Albert fled, they kind of thought that the Johanna people were dead. So it was like, what the hell? And also, more importantly, they're a man and they're a rightful claimant to the throne, technically speaking. So it's like, what the actual hell? So the Swiss declare war, and we instantly see that the Swiss begin raising up a brand new army, because they're like, we got to stop this before this Theodore guy gets too strong, because then he might try and take our throne, and I don't really want to lose my throne. So we see down over here in Monaco that the Swiss will raise a pretty sizable army, around the same size as the original Venetian First Army, and also bigger than this army, as they go ahead and begin marching into Turin territory, as we see that they will go ahead and successfully take Monaco over here. I think this is Monaco, with pretty good ease. And they will continue to ravage through Italy as they take this city, and they actually go ahead and begin arriving at the doorsteps of Turin with incredible success. Oh, and at this point the Swiss are like, hey, you know what, Venice? If you get rid of Theodore and his brothers, execute them, and, you know, get rid of the illegitimate pretenders to the glory of Johann the Immortal, then, you know, we'll leave the war. You can have Italy to yourself, but you better get rid of these brothers and any traces of that royal family. But Theodore is absolutely like, no, because why would I execute myself? You know, we got to show the Swiss that we're strong. Okay, we don't need the Swiss to go ahead and, like, leave us alone. We can take the Swiss. Also, what is this random pixel over here, bro? Like, hello? But Theodore is going to find out that the Pope actually supported the killing of Theodore, and basically came up with a plot to assassinate Theodore. However, obviously Theodore finds out and he kills the nobles, and he holds a trial for the Pope. And in this trial, we actually see that the Pope is found guilty and is forced to sign a treaty which completely reforms the Venetian religion. Which the most important reform is the appointment of Theodore as the new Pope and the transformation of Venice into a full-on theocracy where the Pope holds religious and political power. Now there are other reforms, but we'll get onto those later. But Venice is now a theocracy and Theodore has complete power religiously and politically, which is a huge boost to his interest. While over here, we actually see that the Turin army doesn't go back to face the Swiss. They continue seizing Genoa as Gerard believes that this is the best choice for him to do. However, his armies basically just be like, what the hell? And the reason they're what the hell is because Turin has actually fallen over to the invading Swiss armies, as basically all of Turin, the country, has come under Swiss control, and they are pushing further and further. As the Swiss continue their advance, as they have gone ahead and pushed, taking the city, and in probably around like 6 months to upwards of a year, we see that the Swiss have gone ahead and taken 4 big cities, and are now advancing to take Milan. As Milan is under threat for about the 3rd time in this war, we see that Venice has resupplied some of its army. Now they won't change size. We see that their army has marched all the way over here to Milan to yet again fight, I guess, under the 3rd Battle of Milan in this war. We see that Theodore's army now being replenished by, I guess, Venice and maybe Turin to some extent, I don't really know, anyone basically, is now numbering around 25,000, while the Swiss is around 40,000. As the Swiss prepare to launch their full-scale invasion into Milan, well, at the same time, the Venetian army enters Milan, and we actually see a whole out, like, absolute mess will take place in and around Milan. Well, we actually see that Theodore will yet again secure an underdog victory, using their elite cavalry and infantry to score huge wins against the Swiss, which do not have this elite Berber cavalry, as what's left of the Swiss force is forced to go ahead and retreat, as they will go ahead and retreat down over here to this city. Well, we see the remaining army of Venice won't actually follow, as there's only like a few thousand men here, like maybe like 7,000 men left, which most of them like really do not want to continue. However, they will continue enough to go ahead and liberate all of Venice, but they will not push into Turin. And yet again, the Venetian army has basically been completely wiped out, and they are now reduced down simply to this. They still have a few elite units, but it's barely any, and it's like not enough at all. While over here, we see that the Swiss have also gone ahead and been reduced. However, the difference between the Swiss and the Venetians is that the Swiss have basically unlimited manpower, as the Swiss are raising multiple armies all across the empire, which will eventually unite into one big empire. And Theodore knows this, and he knows that he's not going to be able to hold them off for long. That was a very lucky victory. He really shouldn't have won that, but he did. But Venice doesn't have any more men to throw at the Swiss. They have lost like 8,000 men, which is almost all of their like proper reserve soldiers. They don't have any reserves yet. They're soon going to have to start hiring like conscripts, which aren't going to do anything but lead to more deaths. And Theodore is looking at the situation as like, there is nothing I can do. Or at least that's what the Swiss want Theodore to think, because Theodore has but one card left up his sleeve. And that is that Theodore, as Pope, will go to the nations of the world under the Venetian religion, and he will ask to wage a holy war against the heretics of Florence, Sicily, Genoa, Naples, and most importantly, the Swiss, as he will officially outcast them from the religion, declaring them to basically, I don't know, be a heretic, I guess. As we see that Venice officially creates the anti-Swiss coalition, and we quickly see that numerous countries are all up for this. Notably, we have Croatia over here, Carthage, Tlemcen, Valencia, Catalonia, Asturias, and Aquitaine. And finally, we see up over here that both Dover and London are more than happy to join this crusade, as we clearly see that all of these countries will start mobilizing forces and preparing to send them over to Venice. And we actually see the Swiss Empress, who is known for being bold, will actually back down from this war, saying that this war is pointless. There is no point. First of all, the Venetians were overreacting. Like, what the hell? Like, we just wanted to kill them off and end them. And secondly, nobody actually really wants to fight for me right now. And like, we did just send 40,000 men into Venice, and they basically all just got clobbered. And the Swiss are like, you know what, we're going to take our men elsewhere. And we quickly see that this coalition will go ahead and disband, as the crusade never happens. However, we do see that a few Crusader members will actually end up joining the war. As we see, both Croatia and Carthage officially join this war, with Tlemcen also joining. However, they won't send too many like direct troops. They will send some cavalry, which is pretty nice. And with the Swiss gone, they have just raised a bunch of armies, and like, what are they going to do with this armies? They can't just send them all home. And what are they going to do? Well, they're basically just going to go ahead and march to Red Provence and be like, hey, we're annoyed, so we're just going to get rid of you. As Red Provence will officially go ahead and be destroyed after being here for literally 1 episode. So, good job, Red Provence. You lived for so long. And I can officially go ahead and delete the Swiss armies off the map because we don't need them. And great news, because the Turin army is freed up as they've gone ahead and taken Genoa. As we see that both Venice and Turin will begin firstly rebuilding, but they don't really have anywhere to rebuild from. So I guess they will go ahead and exist as these two armies, as they both go ahead and launch an invasion into Florence, now taking over a pretty sizable chunk of land. However, neither army is really equipped enough to take down and siege Florence, so they will just kind of go around Florence. While over in, I guess, kind of the rest of Genoa/Rome, we see that Rudolf has arrived and he is ready to ignite the Roman Revolution. As we see over in this major city, Rudolf will go ahead and claim it for himself, getting the local garrison, before quickly marching all the way over to Rome, convincing this garrison to go ahead and join him. Well, not garrison, the whole Roman army. And they will go in and swear loyalty to him and against the corrupt lords that are kind of in Rome, as Rome is quickly encircled, and all of Rome, I guess, /Genoa, will go ahead and surrender over to this guy. And then you might be like, how has he just done that? Well, he basically has the entire support of the people, as they're like, we've basically just become a Florence puppet. We kind of want, to be free. And obviously, the people in Rome are very corrupt and steal all the money, so Rome is actually one of the poorest regions in Italy. For the rich people, it's one of the richest regions, but for the peasants, it's terrible. But nonetheless, this siege will eventually be effective, as we see that Rome officially, takes all of Rome, as the Roman army will now push into Neapolitan territory, now actually threatening the city of Naples itself. This quickly forces Naples to rush all the way home. However, when they fight these troops, they will be absolutely exhausted from marching half, like a third way across Italy, and they will decisively be crushed. And with this, we see that the Roman army has no opposition, as we see that every settlement that is not like a super fortified city, like Naples and this city over here, will go ahead and fall over to Roman forces. Like so. As we actually see that Sicily has gone ahead and realized this and are like, hey, our allies need help, and they have moved their kind of second big army down here up over to here, which has allowed them to go ahead and take control of this land, because obviously there's no Neapolitan army, so they've gone ahead and taken control of that. As we see that Sicily prepares to go ahead and launch an invasion into Naples and crush the Roman army and push all the way up to the Italian peninsula and basically become the heroes, as by now Sicily actually is the biggest army in all of Italy, because they have not really fought too much. Like, they have, but, like, they still have the biggest armies. Like, down here, these three armies are actually the biggest because they haven't done too much fighting. Whereas up in the north, these armies have fought a bunch that have been absolutely ravished. However, Sicily has bigger problems, as they have basically just left their whole island undefended. And Carthage hears about this and is like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and make a naval landing in here, which goes incredibly well. As Carthage has two main armies, with their first main army being obviously in Sicily, but their second main army will also make another naval landing. However, this time it will be over here in Sardinia. And this one goes even better than the last, as almost all of Sardinia instantly comes under control of, I guess, kind of Carthaginian forces, as they begin sieging the capital. While over here, we see that the army of Carthage continues to advance as they now push all the way towards the capital. However, by this point, we see that Sicily is fully withdrawn its forces from here, even withdrawing both of its armies down over here, as they aim to defend the Sicilian homeland, to the last breath, essentially. And this is the most stupid idea ever, as Croatian reinforcements have just arrived, bolstering this army, but also bolstering the northern army up here, which has managed to go ahead and gain itself some strength again, although that's the wrong army I just hovered over. There we go, we see the Venetian army has gone ahead and sized up a bit, although it's still, it's a decent size army now, actually. But yeah, with these reinforcements here and Sicily just abandoning this land, the Venetian army is just free to do whatever it wants as it quickly strolls through, easily liberating all of this land as the people just kind of throw open the gates. And we quickly see that Venice is just free to march straight in to Sicily. And that's exactly what they would do, as they go ahead and surround the city, and soon take it, as the Venetian army has moved into here, and they now move down all the way down here, as they have pushed their border to here, preparing to go ahead and do the final invasion, sieging these two major cities. While over in Sardinia, the whole island has fallen to Carthaginian forces. While here, we actually see that Carthage did get into a skirmish with these forces, and they were pushed back. However, it was kind of minor losses. But this front line has stabilized. By stabilizing, I mean the armies are in positions, as Sicily decides not to go ahead and unite its armies, thinking that, that's what caused Florence and stuff to lose, so they split into two. While over here, Rome has managed to take Naples and this city, as Rome now pushes its forces up into Florence, which yet again we see Rome make good success, as the army has basically not really done too much fighting other than the fighting since the revolution, and they are basically led by a pretty good commander, so they are having great success. And people have kind of mass signed up to the army, so the Roman army has actually become one of the biggest armies in Italy. Like so, now actually this has got the silver colour still, it should be the golden colour. And with Turin's capture of this major city over here, we can see that Florence's days are over. However, if you thought Florence would give up that easy, you were dead wrong, as they raised a relatively small, but still notable army. And they will go ahead and take Theodore head on, which is a pretty ballsy move, but they will actually go ahead and win, as Theodore is forced to flee the battlefield. And this is a pretty embarrassing defeat, as Florence uses Theodore's own book against him, and they will go ahead and liberate much of Florence. However, down south, the Roman army continues to advance, as they have gone ahead and begun a siege of this city down here, and have pushed their forces to look something like this. And when the now tired Florentine army pushes to go ahead and fight the Romans, they will unfortunately go ahead and lose, as Rome marches to Florence and begins officially sieging the city. And with Turin's return to the north up over here, we see that all of this land will officially fall, as Florence is now kicked over to their two final cities and Corsica. However, a small Venetian force has gone ahead and been sailing around down here through boats, and they have gone ahead and landed in Corsica, a very long journey. But this force took this expedition took maybe like a year. Actually, that's probably way too long. It took a while, essentially. But with the Venetian landing up over here, and with Florence basically just being gone, we really see that the only city that will stand in the way is obviously the capital of Corsica, which is defended, as this kind of third Venetian army will begin sieging this land. While up over here, the remains of Theodore's army will go ahead and return into the fight. However, people are like, stop returning us to the fight. But this time, Theodore won't get kicked in the arse, because there's not really any kicking in the arse to do. And they will go ahead and siege down here, while Turin and Rome siege this city. This city down here will go ahead and fall, as we see that all three of these armies will now jointly siege Florence. Well, over here, Corsica will fall. Right on here, Carthage will do an absolute masterclass, dividing and conquering these armies, first defeating this army, before moving down here and defeating this army, suffering maybe around 10,000 losses, bringing the army down to like 10,000, while the Sicilians lost around 30,000. And with that, we see that almost all of the Sicilian army has fallen. However, around 5,000 Sicilian troops still remain. Carthage had around 20,000 forces, while Sicily had around 35,000. Now Sicily's at 5,000 and Carthage is at 10,000. Eventually, Carthage will win yet another battle against Sicily, wiping them out once and for all, as we officially see that the Sicilian capital will go ahead and fall. While up over here, the Venetian Second Army has had a great success, crushing both of these villages, now officially attaining control of all of southern Italy. And just like that, only one location on the map remains under Florentine control. And that won't be for much longer, as eventually, after around a year-long siege, Florence will finally surrender. And we can go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty. And looking at this peace treaty, we can see that Italy has completely changed. Up in the north, we see that Genoa has been reduced down to only Genoa, with Venice taking a few provinces as well as Turin. While over in Florence, we see that Florence has basically just kind of been split into three, with Florence remaining in the final third, but then the first third has gone over to Venice, while the southern third has gone over to Rome. With Rome now becoming this very big central Italian power, annexing all of Naples as well as southern Florence. While on here, all of Sicily and southern Italy has gone over to Venice, who is now in two very big chunks in Italy. While finally, we see that Carthage has gone ahead and annexed both Sardinia and Sicily, now heavily expanding their control of the Mediterranean. And I say it finally, but I guess kind of not finally. We actually see that Corsica over here has been created. And that's not all, as there are actually some pretty interesting things about Genoa and this new Corsican country. And for that, we actually have to go over to the ideology layer, which is currently outdated. There we go, I've gone ahead and updated it a bit, but these two are outdated. And we actually see the creation of a brand new ideology, which will actually be theocracy. Now, we know Venice is a theocracy, but these two over here are actually also theocracies. They will actually be a dark green, as they're actually Vishaman theocracies. And you might be like, what does that mean? Well, it basically means that the Pope in Venice actually decides who the leaders of these two countries are. So basically, Theodore, who is the current Pope, and any future Popes, can basically just kind of decide who rules Corsica. Like, hey, you're a pretty good, I guess, kind of cardinal is what I'm going to call them, although it's not Christianity, or whatever religion uses cardinals, I can't remember. It's just a nice word that, describes the term, but obviously this isn't Christianity at all. But essentially, Venice's best cardinal, but essentially the Pope's favourite people will be appointed as the cardinals of both Genoa and Corsica, but they will also act as the leaders of Genoa and Corsica, if that makes sense. So essentially, Venice is kind of like the owner of Genoa and Corsica to some extent, but they're not officially puppet states. It's just that the Pope in Venice appoints both the leader of Corsica and Genoa, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, these are Italy's brand new borders. And I just spent an hour and 20 minutes recording this war. I don't really know if I like the armies. If you guys really like the armies, I'll use them. But it kind of felt like I slowed me down. And I definitely have to do way more editing. So I don't know if I'm going to get this episode out on Wednesday. Hopefully I will. But this is going to take me so long to edit because every 5 seconds I have to cut something out, cut something out, cut something out, made a stutter. Like, genuinely so unbelievably annoying. But I guess kind of the last thing we'll do is kind of 3 different events. But I'll actually be back. I say I'll be back. I mean, I'll instantly cut to when I'm back. But yeah, cut to when I'm back. There we go. I'm back. And I honestly forgot what we were going to look at. But I think it was just the final 3 events. And we actually have to go over to the kind of religious layer over here. Because this kind of old system is actually getting scrapped. As no longer will we have any of these kind of grey outlines. Why doesn't it work? There we go. At least for the Venetian religion. Now I actually just change it for everything. So I actually have to go ahead and change these all manually. But yeah, the Venetian system is remodeling. But yeah, they are actually adopting a new system known as the cardinal system. Where each country, well, they might have 0. But each country will have a certain amount of cardinals. And these cardinals all have, I guess, kind of a seat on the new council in the Venetian Pope thingamajiggity bob. Whatever. Where they can go ahead and vote on matters. So rather than each country having like 1 vote, like in the top 5, it's actually just like there could be an infinite amount of cardinals. Like say the Swiss could have like 4 cardinals or whatever. Then Catalonia can have 0. Valencia could have 2 or whatever. So in this regard, the Swiss would have 4 votes at whatever meeting was going on. Valencia would have 2 and Catalonia would obviously have 0. They wouldn't be invited to the meeting. But yeah, we can go ahead and take a look at how many cardinals each country has. And for this, I'll actually move my mic over here. So I do apologize if I sound a bit less. It's because I need to type stuff. And my mic is in the way of my keyboard. So, yeah. But obviously, Venice over here will have the most. They will go ahead and have 4 cardinals. Situated in Milan, which is here. Venice. Bologna, which is like under here, I think. And then all the way down here in Otranto. The Swiss will go ahead and have 3. 1 in Bern, 1 in Paris, and 1 in Marseille down here. Rome will actually have 2, 1 in Rome and 1 in Naples. So that's pretty good for a country that just formed. We also see at this point that Carthage and Tlemcen have joined this. Also, the Swiss are officially part of the Red Religion, and the Red Religion will probably spread now. Yeah, they officially have become a Red Religion country. This was all kind of like ratified or whatever in the treaty. Turin has 1 in, well, Turin. Genoa and Corsica both have 1, and the Cardinal of Genoa and Corsica is obviously, you know, the leader of Genoa and Corsica. As previously mentioned, the Cardinals both lead Genoa and Corsica, so they each have 1 seat, which is why, like, obviously these countries are super weak, and some countries that are stronger won't have them. But yeah, we also see over here, the Florence, they will still have 1 Cardinal, same power as Genoa though. And the Cardinals of Genoa and Corsica will almost always vote with whatever Venice wants. So, you know, Venice really has 6 if you really think about it. Carthage has 2, 1 in, well, Carthage and 1 in Ragusa, which I think is the capital of Sicily. Not in real life, but like, I think Ragusa is like here or something, and then the capital's here, so it's close enough. Tlemcen will have 2, 1 in Tlemcen and 1 in Constantine, and if you don't know, Constantine is this big city here. And there's probably some I missed. That I've skipped by. But Valencia will have 1. Aquitaine will also have 1 in Bordeaux. And I think finally Asturias will have 1. There might be more that have some. And actually there is 1 more, I think, which is just Dover. But yeah, those are the Cardinals. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 17, 19, 21-ish Cardinals, I think. Croatia has 1 as well, at least. I don't know why I didn't mention them on there. I'll just put 1 for now. But yeah, these are kind of the cardinal / voting power every country has, which is kind of the first of the 3 events. This will be something interesting. I don't know if I'll touch up on it a lot. But like, this definitely helps the power ranking because it puts Venice in a good spot. Seeing as, I mean, they have 4 themselves, and they technically have 6, really, if you really think about it. And then obviously Turin's the ally, and Rome is the ally. Well, unofficial ally at the moment. So that's like 9. So that's already basically half. And then Croatia's kind of their friend, and Carthage kind of their friend. So they basically have the majority. But speaking of alliance, we have to go on to the alliance layer, because part of this triangle alliance is actually going to be staying as a permanent alliance. As Venice, Turin, and Rome will go ahead and officially create the Brothers Alliance. Remember, like, why is it called the Brothers Alliance? Well, that's because the 3 brothers over here, they all lead one of these nations. Theodore leads Venice over here. Gerard goes ahead and leads Turin. And finally, Rudolph leads Rome over here. And we actually see that Catherine is actually married to the Florentine king. I think it's Florentine king. So, really, there's kind of a royal family member in, like, all of these countries. So, essentially, really, the Johanna royal family kind of controls all of Italy, except Sicily and Sardinia, because these guys are, like, directly controlled. The queen over here is Johanna, although the king technically isn't, but, like, they could just sort out the king whatever they want. And then Venice kind of controls these 2 countries. So, realistically, all of Italy is now kind of under control of the Brothers Alliance. But yeah, that's something I thought was pretty cool, to create like a Brothers Alliance between these 3 countries. And also, we now have a Rome on the map, which is pretty fun to see. Okay, wait. I forgot to do the power rankings, guys. Normally, I just, like, if I missed it, I'm not recording it. But because this whole war happened, I feel like I need to do the power rankings. Because these were the old power rankings, and this is changing. I'm actually deleting this, so, yep. You're gone. But anyway, these power rankings are changing quite a bit. The number 1 country is actually the Kurdish over here. They have surpassed the Swiss. They've enjoyed relative, like, prosperity up over here, and have now, like, eclipsed the Swiss, although the Swiss are very close behind. These ranks could change, like, either way. And at number 3, you might be able to guess it, is actually going to be Venice. Now, the Swiss and the Kurds are a lot above Venice, but, you know, Venice is very powerful. And Venice's win here has ushered in a new Venetian golden age. How long this golden age will last, that is a question that will be answered, I don't know when. Whenever it ends, really. It could be really short. It could be long. It could last like 20 episodes. It could last 10. It could last 5. Or it could even last like until next episode. But the number 4 country is going to be Tlemcen. And we see that Tlemcen and Venice are both kind of in their own little section up here. They're both strong countries. They're both miles away from the Swiss and the Kurds, but there's also, like, miles away from anyone else. And we've got some, like, weird orange alliance going on here. Like, this orange-red kind of thingamajig. Anyway, the number 4 spot has gone over to Bulgaria. They have resurpassed Albania, who is now in number 5. Number 6 goes over to Anatolia, with number 7 going over to Carthage. They have prospered very well from this, and have gained a lot of influence, and also land, and also money. Number 8 is going to be Persia over here. Number 9 is going over to Cadiz, with number 10 going over to Valencia. Number 11 will be Croatia, with number 12 going over to Serbia. Number 13 will be Armenia. Number 14 will actually be Rome. Number 15 will go to Asturias, with number 16 going over to Galicia. Number 17 will go to Jutland. I'd also probably say once you get to Persia, there's also another drop-off. 18 is going to go over to Dover. Never mind, actually scrap that. These rankings are not necessarily super accurate. Number 15 will actually be these guys over here. Madrid will be number 15. Asturias will be number 16, which means that number 18 will actually go ahead and be Galicia. Number 19 will go over to Dover. And finally, number 20 will go over to this Iberian state. I can't remember what I called it, Leon. And yeah, those are the power rankings. Now, might be off, as always. You feel free to disagree. But the main kind of things is Venice is now in number 3. Carthage is shot up to 7. Also, I just realized there's 2 number 4s, isn't there? I can't be asked to... You guys understand, right? You can do the maths yourself. Anything past the Berbers should be an extra placement up. I was wondering, I was like, I feel like I'm missing a country here. So, yeah. But I guess kind of the main things from this, Venice is now strong. Very strong, actually. The new golden age. Carthage is now much stronger. Rome exists. Florence and Genoa are weak. Turin is weak, as always. I mean, seriously, when are Turin not weak? And I guess kind of the Kurds have surpassed the Swiss. but they kind of are similar strengths. And I guess obviously Bulgaria and Albania are very close in rankings and are definitely scrapping it out, not physically at least yet, for dominant power of the Balkans. But yeah, if you made it this far, I'll give you a sneak peek of something I was making, which is the population map. But like, Florence is now gone. So, I mean, I can still do it because, you know, the only thing that's different is Italy. But honestly, this is kind of an interesting way to look at how Florence is divided. Like, you can actually see there is kind of an even split. I didn't think it was, but like, Venice got the most land, but they didn't actually get the most major cities. They actually went over to Rome down here. But yeah, that is enough of me. That is officially the end of this episode. And I hope you went and enjoyed this video. And let me know your thoughts. And I'm stop saying and I'll end the video. Have a good day. See you next episode. Goodbye.